Hi, my name is Mary Elkins, and I am the coordinator for the Radiologic Technology program here at Triton College. And that program teaches our students how to position for and take x-rays in an imaging department.
Oh, okay. All right.
So, yeah, so they have to be prepared, and they start their clinical training, oh gosh, very soon after each semester starts, even after their very first semester starts. So they have to take some introductory courses to, for instance, patient care. They have to know how to communicate with patients, how to deal with human diversity in the medical field, how to if somebody comes in and they can't do their study in a normal way, how are they going to critically think to do it another way?
Yes, yes.
It's everything isn't always done a normal way.
Right.
So that's what I do. We have classroom courses. They have their didactic courses. We also have a hands-on lab that actually generated lab over in the F building where students can take x-rays of our phantoms and actually see those x-rays come up on the monitor and be able to critique them. So it's pretty exciting. So I'll go ahead and start my PowerPoint presentation that I have, and we'll go from there.
Okay.
So this first slide that I have, this depicts what happens to my students when they have worked through several case studies and all of a sudden they have that aha moment where they say, oh my gosh, I understand better how to figure out a problem. So I am not an expert in case studies. This isn't something that I came up with. I do use them in a couple of my classes, and I have found that they enhance learning in the classroom. They allow the students to learn about real life scenarios, work out real life problems, and certain scenarios that they might be exposed to at their clinical sites. So if we talk about it in the classroom, once they go to their clinical site, they can think to themselves, oh my gosh, we've talked about that before, and I think I know how to work this problem out. I think this is going to help me. As an instructor, I have some goals for myself. I want to present course materials in a way that promotes deeper learning, not just, okay, you've memorized this term, but how do you use it? Or you've memorized about how to transfer a patient from a wheelchair to a table. But what happens if you can't do it the normal way? What happens if it isn't exactly like the book tells you? I have the students either read case studies and work through them themselves, or I can have them work in groups. And when they work in groups, I see that the students have such a good time collaborating and talking about the cases that honestly they don't even know that they're learning something. They have no idea. So I try to encourage learning. I try to motivate and inspire them. I try to prepare them for real life, which would be their life at the clinical settings. So what is a case study? It's a story problem. It's like the story problems that we used to do in math class. Johnny goes to the store. He has $1. His purchase has a cost of 27 cents. How much money is he going to get back? Figure it out. So the case studies help the students understand the concepts and objectives that I'm going to be teaching them in the classroom. All of the information is included in that story. They need to figure that problem out, though. The case studies usually tell the scenario, and they need to figure out what's going on. Kind of like if you ever have watched any of the doctor shows, like, oh, I don't know, New Amsterdam or something like that. Doctors take their medical students on rounds, on doctor's rounds. So they'll walk into the room and they have a patient laying there and they'll say, this is Mrs. Jones. She's 57 years old. She presented to the hospital with a fever of 101.7 degrees Fahrenheit. She has pain in her lower right abdomen. It gives all of the information, and then they'll turn to the medical students and go, okay, what do you think it is? Based on all of the information, what do you think it is? What do you think the problem is? So this is kind of how those case studies are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so what I do is I give the case studies, present them to the students, and they read through them, and they start discovering some of the information. And I usually have questions they need to answer about the case study afterwards. They'll read through it, and then there are certain questions. Number one being, what's the problem? What's a problem that you need to figure out? What's the issue? What are the key points of the issue? What are some solutions to fixing the issue? They're kind of like archaeologists trying to uncover something that's hidden. They sift through all of that information so that they can figure out step by step if there's a problem, and if so, how are they going to fix it? So there are some basic steps that you can use to figure out a problem, critically think to figure out a problem. Basically, identify the problem, investigate the problem, come up with viable solutions, and then select the best solution. So a couple of questions that you can ask if you're trying to identify the problem is, does a problem exist? If so, what is it? And if you're investigating the problem, you can ask, what are the key elements of the problem? What's key information? And another thing, are there safety, risk, or liability considerations? And then the last one, obviously, figuring out the best solution. Coming up with viable solutions and then figuring out what the best solution is. I have a case example, one that I use in patient care. Now this was inside my box. I apologize about that. So this is about a human diversity scenario. The patient arrives to the imaging department for a chest x-ray, and you realize she does not speak English. You need to direct or take the patient from the waiting room. You need to give instructions for the procedure, and those instructions include removing all of the clothing from the waist up and any metallic objects from the abdomen and chest area. After dressing, the patient then needs to be positioned properly for the x-ray. Once you're finished, you need to give the patient exit instructions. So if we work through those steps for critical thinking and problem solving, we can say, number one, what's the problem? What do you think the problem is, Monroe?
Well, I think it would be, first of all, trying to overcome, find someone who is fluent in the type of language, whatever language it is, that does not speak English. So we find.
That's exactly right. So that's our problem. Our problem is our patient doesn't speak English and we don't speak their language.
Yes, sure, yes, yes.
So then step number two is, what are the key elements of the problem? Or you can also ask, are there any safety, risk, or liability considerations? Well, the answer is yes. If you cannot properly communicate with the patient and you assume that the patient understands your body language and you try to position them, one of the big things that the patient needs to do when they're having a chest x-ray is they need to take in a really deep breath.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't communicate that to the patient and they don't take in a really deep breath, you're going to have to take the x-ray again. And that means that your patient is going to get extra radiation.
Yes.
So, right, so that's a risk, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So absolutely. The other thing is you have to ask the patient to remove any metallic objects from their abdomen all the way up to their chest area. Well, how are you going to communicate that to them if you don't speak their language?
Right, right.
So one of the solutions is you find somebody who can speak their language. So whether it be a translator line or whether it be another X-ray technologist that knows how to speak their language, that's one of our viable solutions, and that could be our best solution. We
Nice.
need somebody that speaks the patient's language. So that's just a real simple example of a case study that I use for patient care.
Sure.
Yeah, I walk my students through a real life scenario, something that they might possibly see when they're at their clinical site. And then if they ever happen to see that, they go, oh, you know what? I know what to do. We talked about this in class. I'm going to ask my tech who speaks Spanish if they can talk with this student or with this patient and help them through procedure.
Sure, sure. Yeah.
So that's one example of what I do. Another example. Oh,
Yes.
what was that, Monroe?
I was going to say that's so important because I have so many students who are going in nursing, some are in physical therapy, and they're going moving in that direction. So this is something good that they need to know because they'll.
You know what?
Yes.
Exactly right. If we can prepare the students to critically think in our classrooms,
Sure.
they're just going to be so much more effective out in like the social sciences, the health sciences,
Sure.
whenever they're actually working with people and they need to help figure out problems.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So my next case, I have another case. This one is a little more. It's a little different. This is one that I use in my ethics class. I like this one. I'm going to go ahead and pull up this. See if I can pull up this website. Okay.
Okay.
And I don't think that I can. So you know what I want to do? Let me hold on a second. Okay. Okay, I'm not able to do that. Hold on just a second. Let me pull it up and then share my screen with you.
Okay.
I think I can pull it up this way and then share my screen with you. Let's do it this way. Okay, so let me go here. Let me get out of this real quickly. Okay. Let me see where that is. Hold on a second. Okay, right here. Can you see the case?
Yes, Cassandra, right to refuse treatment or.
Right to refuse. Okay, so this is a case I love to use in my ethics class. And what I would do is I would walk through this basically with the students. So this happened in 2015. This was in Connecticut, a 17-year-old girl. It says in Connecticut, a 17-year-old girl is being kept in a hospital room under court order. She is restrained to her treatment bed when she is given chemotherapy that neither she nor her mother want. Cassandra C. is a young woman who was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma in September 2014. She underwent surgery to remove a lymph node and then chose not to receive further treatment. She left the hospital with her mother, Jackie Fortin, to allegedly seek a second opinion out of state.
Hmm.
According to Fortin and her attorney, Cassandra believes that chemotherapy is toxic to the body and has long-term negative effects. She believes it destroys fertility, damages organs, and causes great harm. For these reasons, Cassandra does not want chemotherapy. Let's see. According to doctors, the treatment has an 80 to 95% rate of success, and perhaps she might have those 30 years of living before dying of an unintended effect. So what happened was the doctors decided that it was in her best interest for them to continue the chemotherapy for her lymphoma, had 80 to 90% chance of survival rate. The patient had refused. She was 17 years old. The doctors took the case to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court ruled in their favor, and so the teen was forced to have chemotherapy. The teen was taken from her mother and put in the custody of a foster family. The mother was only allowed to visit with a caseworker present. The 17-year-old had her phone taken away from her, and she was confined to her hospital room. So I would ask, what do you think about that? Morally, what do you think about that? Do you believe that they should force her to have chemotherapy?
I don't think so, because of the effects of chemotherapy. It kills it kills the cancer cell, but it also kills the good cells, and it's kind of like a toss-up. Do we really want to subject the patient to that, or should they be forced? And I think when you come to the where you're getting to the area of forcing a person, I don't think that's good at all. I really don't. And this individual, 17 years old, and who knows how long it might be, how long she's going to live. That's kind of difficult to assess, kind of difficult to make that call. So it's very, very difficult. So I can see where that can be a major problem and why it went to the Supreme Court. But
right. So this is one of my favorite cases in ethics, because almost every student says, "Oh, that's wrong."
Yes.
From everything that I've ever been taught, that's wrong. Yes. So then here's what I do. I talk about morals versus ethics. I'll give them a little tutorial on morals versus ethics. Just basically that morals are our personal beliefs about what is right and wrong. They're our value system. They're based on how we're raised, our family life, our societal guidelines, and all of us, when we're out, wherever we are in life, we base our ideas of right and wrong on our own moral values.
Sure.
We do. So in the clinical setting, our students are going to use their personal values, their personal opinions, first and foremost, whenever they're starting to think about how I'm going to deal with a certain problem, or whether they think something is right or wrong. Now, if we talk about ethics, we talk about the fact that ethics shows us what is and then has us question how it should be. There are rules that are provided, external rules that are provided that help us figure out if something is ethically right or wrong, and an ethical decision that we might make in a certain case. Like in my profession, I have a code of ethics for radiologic technologists. I know nurses have codes of ethics. Businesses have guidelines. They have rules. They have workplace rules. So a lot of times, whenever you talk ethics, you're talking a lot of times in the essence of professional and business scenarios. How
Right.
are we going to ethically make this decision? So whenever I'm presenting this case, I'll also say I'll talk about a certain approach that we can use to figure out whether this was whether this case was ethically treated or not. And one of the approaches we can use is what's called a principle-based approach.
Sure.
And there are 7 ethical principles that help guide us to make an ethical decision. So one of them is autonomy.
Mm-hmm.
Letting, in the case of a patient, letting the patient have their own say so.
Yes.
Letting them letting them be part of the decision-making process. So what did
Sure.
Cassandra do and her mother? They said no.
Oh.
No more chemotherapy. Now, another ethical principle and I think these two relate to this case. Another ethical principle is beneficence, acting in a way that benefits someone,
Yes.
and non-maleficence, do no harm. It's a duty to do no harm.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So then I take my students back to the case. I go, okay, let's work through the ethical principles. Let's talk about autonomy. Was Cassandra allowed the patient, the 17-year-old patient, was she allowed to have her own say so?
No, no, absolutely. And
No.
yes. And it's,
No. And all the students say no.
yes. Mm.
Well, how about beneficence on the part of the doctor? Was the doctor acting in a way to benefit his patient?
Well, if you go by the code to do no harm, then he felt or she felt that it was ethical to restrain the patient and to give the patient the chemotherapy. So again, gets back to the case of their beliefs and their code. What they really believe and how they follow that code. So it's
Yes, yes. So these are some of the ways that I challenge my students.
sure,
I'll start out with a case, and then I'll talk about the content for the day, and then we go back to the case, and I say, how does what you just learned relate to this case?
sure, sure.
And
This
then
is
I'll have some, then I'll have through the case, asking them, oh, I'm sorry.
no, I didn't say anything. No.
Oh, I thought somebody else did.
Oh,
So that's how I use that second case. So then we say why. Why do I use these cases? Why do I think they're important to teach critical thinking in the classroom? They relate to real life solutions.
sure, sure.
A lot of you were talking about some of your students are going into the nursing field. My
Sure.
students, either in the radiography program or my allied health students, my ethics students, they're going into real life situations, and these cases help them to critically think in the classroom so that they can apply that outside of the classroom.
Sure, sure. Mhm.
Right. This also addresses different styles of learning. Some students learn by listening, some by reading, some by hands-on. This is a little bit of all of it,
Oh,
and it also allows them to collaborate, which is something they're going to be doing at their clinical sites. They're going to be working with other team members.
that, that, that,
Um,
that's what I
I
do.
beg your pardon?
That's what I do in my when we have breakout sessions. We have breakout sessions, and what they're currently working on is a what do you think about the COVID-19? What
Yes.
you learn, how can you uh, relate COVID-19, and what are your points about COVID-19? And who knows? The professionals don't really know, but what do you think about COVID-19 and what you learned from studying physiology and biology? what are some takeaways that you can throw at this, and it might be highly relevant. So I tell them there's no right or wrong answer there. Just make sure that you all get together and work on it. So we get in our small groups. They get in their small groups, and then I pop back in on them to see how everybody's going, and they say, "Oh, we're doing great. We're doing great. We're trying to just figure
Yeah,
out."
and that's your case study. That's the case study that you're using for your classes.
Sure, sure, absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. So you know what? Another thing that I love about it, it allows for different points of view.
Yes,
I tell my students, you know, this is a safe place for you
yes,
to give your opinion. However, remember that your rights end where the other person's rights begin. So
yes,
please, no pointing of fingers, no telling each other, no, your opinion's wrong. No, this
yes.
is a time to collaborate and listen, right?
Absolutely, absolutely, and it's
Yeah.
I found that that was very very helpful, and they enjoy it when they get together in groups. Yeah, and initially it was get together because I want you to get to know each other, and you know there's some that might not want to be in the group. I say, well, we'll kind of rotate. If you don't want to be in there, we can put you in another group. But they're gel.
Absolutely.
They gel, and then they start to talk about the differences, real life scenarios. So I found that to work out very well in my classes. My morning class was slow to start, but my evening class, they were all excited. They were all excited about it. So
Isn't
thank
that funny?
yes, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I apologize. My slide here for some reason didn't whenever I sent it over, it all got squished up.
Oh, that's okay.
Another
That's
reason I
all right.
do this is this promotes long-term memory. They
Sure.
don't just memorize something. You give it to them in a story, they work through it, and I
Sure.
find that they learn it a lot better.
Absolutely, absolutely. So this is good for me in my class because I'm always trying to figure out how could I figure out a way to motivate these students, get them thinking, and then what comes around was COVID-19, which affects all of us, and then I ask them what can you say, what can you do? Uh, Someone come up with what you talked about with the COVID-19 pandemic, and
Hmm.
they start to pulling on what they've learned so far, and it's really exciting, and the students are really getting into it, and I'm just
I
glad.
know.
Yes,
I love collaboration. So let me tell you how I use it. How I use these. I use them not only in groups, like
yes,
in our Blackboard Collaborate. I can break students up into groups, and
yes,
they can work together in their little classrooms. I do it
sure,
with discussion posts.
yes,
I will pose I will have a case for them, a link for a case for them to read, and then in their discussion post have certain questions for them to answer. And then
sure,
in journals, I use it with journals.
yes,
So last but not least, these are some of the websites that I use that have some really great, um, the first, second, third, fourth are ethics.
ooh,
And you know, that can be used for ethics or medical. The very last one is Harvard case studies.
ooh,
We as Harvard business case studies are, as educators, we have free access. So I would encourage you to go online and you can get free case studies.
certainly, certainly. I would love to see those. I would love to see those because that's kind of widening my horizon in terms of what can I come up with in this in this platform that I have now. It was virtual learning and something that will just motivate the kids, and they're all at home, and some have to go to work, but they're all at home during
Hmm.
that time, of course.
Right.
And so this is something great for them. So I thank you so much for this
You're welcome. Hey,
information.
Monroe, let me point this out. This second one, this Ethics Unwrapped.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Ethics Unwrapped was put together by somebody out of Texas. I think it's Macomb Business School. It
Oh,
is that entire site has videos and case studies that go along with the videos.
fantastic.
It,
That's what I use.
it
That's
is,
what I, yes.
yep, it's amazing. I use it all the time.
Oh, goodness.
So I will those resources up so that you can copy them if you need to.
Okay. All right. All right.
So other than that, that's all I have. I've seen a lot of benefits from using case studies. One of my students was he was an older student, and
Yes.
he was trying to get into the nursing program, and his wife was helping him with his homework. About halfway through the course, or through the ethics class, he came to me and he said, Mary, he said, my wife doesn't have to help me with my homework anymore. He
Oh,
said, just by working through these case studies and learning how to critically think, he said, I am able to figure out my homework on my own now.
this is great. That's great. Uh, this is something that I found that my students now, since they've gotten into uh, what I've asked them to do, and certainly my wife assists. She's my lab tech, so to speak, and they are learning so much. And it goes beyond the textbook. And it's real life scenarios that are in place now. And so I tell them, don't worry about being wrong. Don't talk to your fellow classmate and say, "Oh, that's absolutely wrong, stupid." There's there's no right or wrong answers. It's what you come up with, and if it makes sense, then we can report on it. So it's so important. But this is really good, really good.
Well, thank you. I just find such value in them. So I'm glad that. Are you able to do the websites?
Uh, yes, actually, my I just using Triton, and .edu, but you can. I'm thinking about putting up a website that can a website in terms of trying to get this out in terms of what we're doing in class. So it's something I'm thinking of.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thank you. It was fun.
Oh, yes,
I
yes.
enjoyed the collaboration.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mary. And um, okay, thank you so much. And I'll be looking forward. I might be on tomorrow. I think you're doing you're a moderator tomorrow. Am I correct?
No, just today. Just today.
Yeah, Monroe, which one out?
It was tomorrow at I think it was 2:30 or 2 to 3 or something like that. It was on a CTE. I was looking at CTE, and that's tomorrow. Um,
Thank you, Rita.
Okay, I'm gonna stop recording now and then we'll take a look.